All right, live on the air right now. I'm still setting up, waiting for some viewers to come in as well. We have the live chat room is open, so feel free to hop in the live chat, ask questions, that sort of thing. I'm going to be setting audio levels and whatnot. Again, remember that this is live Google Hangouts, so because of that, there can be technical difficulties. There's really no way for me to audio monitor. I'm going to be setting audio levels and whatnot. Again, remember that this is
Let's go ahead.
live. Mute that. There we go. So now I can at least see the video feed here. And let's see what we got. Make sure I have the chat window up here. I'm going to type in there. Okay. Do I think I'll sell my Moog now? No, I don't. I've had the MatrixBrute for, let's think, since I want to say early October. This is a prototype. I was involved in the sound design of the MatrixBrute, so this one, it has an early paint job on it. This is not the final paint job. If you look at the Sonic State video, you'll see the final paint job, which is the same color as the Arturia Drum Brute. It's got that nice darker finish, which quite honestly, I like the final product look a lot more than the prototype. But no, I really like the Sub Phatty a lot. I think it's a 10 out of 10 for exactly what it is. MatrixBrute can do way more, can cover basically all the same sound bases, but I like the Sub Phatty just for what it is, and I'm a little bit of a collector, so I don't intend to sell it, just because I like it for what it is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I don't really need to sell it, so why sell it, you know? So please, in the chat, keep me aware of how the audio levels are, because again, I can't monitor what you guys are hearing at all, and it really sucks that Google doesn't, take more pride in their Google Hangout platform. So there's really no way to do that. I'm looking into, for future broadcasts, possibly doing some other things that might help with that. But for now, if you have issues with the audio stream, if you have questions, that sort of thing, please just let me know, and I'll help you out as best I can. Give me just a second here. Let me get I'm going to get my little iPhone out here so that I can check the live chat from my phone, as opposed to always having to turn around and look at the computer. Plug this thing in as well. Let's see here. State. I recommend, as far as getting $2,000, I highly recommend prostitution, selling kidneys, nefarious means in general. That seems to be the route to go these days. Let's pull up the live chat off of here. Just so you know, I tried to set it up so that I could have the oscilloscope view in the Google Hangout, but it really, again, with the way Google Hangouts is set up, it just really wasn't working for me. Maybe in the future I can use Open Broadcast or something like that, and I can get more windows and kind of make it look a little bit better like that. But I'm still in the teething stage of setting that kind of stuff up, so you'll have to bear with me on that. This is my home studio. This is not like the work studio or anything. So this is like my personal gear collection, so I don't have everything at my disposal. Okay, I have the live chat on my phone now. I'm not going to be giving a full sound design tutorial on the MatrixBrute. I did do one patch design on it in an earlier video, and I'll be doing more patch design videos in the near future. So yeah, that'll be coming. I did a patch design video on the DeepMind 12 most recently, and that turned out pretty well. So let's see what we got here. Give me just a second. I think we're just about ready to start. Throw throw this on. Also, before I fully get started here, I'm interested in hearing any questions you guys have. If there's anything that you guys can think of that maybe has put you off to the MatrixBrute, that you're hearing in internet rumors and that sort of thing, ask it in the chat. Let me know. And I'd love to field those kinds of questions, because I'll be honest with you, so you could easily argue that I'm biased because I did sound design work on it. That's a fair assessment, you know? But at the same time, I'm an honest person, and I'll tell you, like, if I think I'm too biased to review something or to talk about something, I'll certainly point that out. The MatrixBrute I legitimately am head over heels with, and that's why I'm doing so many videos. Like, I'm not being paid to do these videos. My work on the MatrixBrute is done. Like, I'm not being paid to do any kind of promotion for the MatrixBrute at all. But it's literally because I like the synth so much and I find it so interesting and fun to program on that I'm doing these types of videos and whatnot. I got my tea and my bourbon over here, so give me a sec. Okay, so is it still my favorite synth? Yes, absolutely. This is out of all the gear in my setup, this is legitimately my favorite synthesizer in the setup. And that kind of even includes the modular, just because when I come into the studio, like, the very first thing that I turn on is the MatrixBrute now, and part of that is because I use it with my modular a lot. You can see that the patch cables up top are all plugged in. But more than that, it's that I'd say probably 90% of the sounds that I want I can make on this, and they sound better on this than on the vast majority of the other stuff that I would do it with. A lot of the times, my modular, if I want to make a mono synth sound on my modular, I could do a very similar sound on the MatrixBrute and do it faster and without so much repatching. I use my modular more for effects and strange sounds, drones, that kind of thing. Whereas the MatrixBrute, if I want to do a bass sound, a lead sound, a pad sound, a lot of the work that I do is in multi-sampling. So I'll take mono sounds and turn them into poly sounds for software synthesizers and whatnot. And in that regard, yeah, the MatrixBrute is awesome. So let's go ahead and is the display screen still lame? I don't mind it. So I'm guessing you're talking about the e-ink display. I really like it. There's only two drawbacks to that screen. One drawback would be that instead of using a matte screen for the for the clear plastic screen over top of it, it's a shiny screen. So the glare isn't bad, but to me, it would have made more sense if there was no glare off of this under any kind of lighting circumstance at all, because that's one of the benefits of e-ink. The other thing about it is that it refreshes a little bit slow. So if you change a preset on here, it kind of takes about a full second for this screen to reset. But that's not really a big deal because all it is telling you what your modulation paths are, and that's not changing very much. So that doesn't really bother me. Readability on it is really good, so that's not a problem at all. The sequencer on the MatrixBrute is dope. I love it, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. Yeah, and that's the other thing is about the e-ink screen, and I talked to the designers about that. They kind of did allude to the fact that that screen will last forever. So it's low cost and it'll last forever. So why not? Okay, so we're getting questions about using the sequencer with other synthesizers. Now, the Sonic State review had kind of a slightly mixed message about it. You can use the sequencer with other synthesizers, but what I think he was trying to say is that you can't detach the sequencer of this from the MatrixBrute itself. Meaning, if a sequence is playing, it's going to be pitching your oscillators around. But you do still have pitch out and gate out and sync out of your sequencer on the back of this thing, but it's the same pitch out as your oscillator. So you have oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 pitch out. So you have two pitch outs that can be independent, but for the most part, your sequencer is coming out of pitch 1 and the gate is coming out of the gate output. So you can use it in that way. You can also use it via MIDI. I'll show you that right now. If I have it, I have the sub phatty MIDI'd up with it. If I hit play, that's both of these right now. Look, I'll turn. Now it's just the sub phatty. And then if I turn that on. Okay. So it does send out that way as well. Now, let's go ahead and dive into some basic sounds first so that I can kind of explain this. And I probably will be moving the camera around to the oscilloscope at some point so you can see the waveforms a little bit better and how close they are. The way that I'm going to start out, and I'm trying to kind of, I tried to get the contrast as good as I could. The sub phatty has this silver plating across the front, so it makes it kind of hard to see where the knobs are set and all that. But you'll kind of sort of have to just trust me on this and use your ears. What I'm doing first is we're going to start with a saw waveform. And the first one that I want to start with is oscillator 3 on the MatrixBrute. And that's the most basic oscillator. That's the one that does not have wave folding on it. You know, the metalizer doesn't have pulse width on it, and it doesn't have ultrasaw, but it does have a sine wave. So what we're going to do with that is the first thing we're going to do is just listen to the raw oscillator sound. Let's turn the sequencer off. I'm just kind of, I'm volume matching as best I can here, looking at the oscilloscope. All right, so that's MatrixBrute. And let me know how the sound is too, please. Oh. So that raw oscillator, the reason why I wanted to show that one is it differs ever so slightly from the other two oscillators, and it really sounds pretty much identical to the way the saw wave does on the sub phatty. But the thing about the sub phatty is it's a variable waveform and it can adjust in interesting ways. What's really crazy is the sub phatty, you know, when it was marketed, a lot was made about how it has the drive on it, and it can overdrive your filter input, and it has the multi-drive setting on here as well. Let me actually kind of set that up just right. Trying to get my envelopes pretty close too, just because not saying the guys in the chat are like this, but sometimes I'll get people on YouTube commenting that make no damn sense and don't understand how an envelope can affect sound, and that just kind of makes me want to smack them. So without me having to smack people, the world can be a better place. So anyway, what I was saying is that the oscillator 3, this more basic oscillator, really, let me see. So the third oscillator, it's more basic, and it's got a more linear design to it. And let's go a little bit lower, an octave lower here, because in my opinion, personally, what Moog really does right is low frequency oscillator, and I don't mean LFO, I mean just lower pitches. Like when you get into the lower range of bass sounds, for some reason Moog oscillators just sound fat. They get really heavy. And some other oscillators out there will really struggle with that. Some of my Euro oscillators struggle with that. The square waves especially tend to get more buzzy as opposed to thick and meaty. And I'm going to kind of show the contrast on the MatrixBrute with that because it actually holds its own really nicely. Now, so again, this is the MatrixBrute Sub Phatty. Let's go down one more. Oh, I gotta go down, don't I? Yeah, it's as low as that one's going. Okay, so. Alright, so, yeah, we get. Okay. We'll go back to 0 here for a second. Now, some of the major differences between these oscillators and yeah, I really don't care if Christian doesn't like how much I'm talking. So anyway, one of the major differences between these is how the overdrive actually works. So on the Sub Phatty, when you're overdriving it, the way the waveform shapes change is pretty drastically different. And the way that the MatrixBrute overdrives is drastically different because there's a lot more gain staging involved. Now, the way I have the MatrixBrute set up right now is I'm sending oscillator 3 through just the ladder the ladder filter on here. It's going parallel mode, but I'm only sending through the ladder. That way, it's kind of a similar topology as I'm going through here. But you can actually run it in so many different ways, and you have two different types of drive on the front end of the filter. Before that, you also can overdrive the waveforms, and you can overdrive the mixer on the MatrixBrute. So you can actually get like 5 different stages of overdrive on the MatrixBrute, whereas on the Sub Phatty, you really only have 2 to 3. So, and how you kind of sculpt those will change that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to show how oscillator 1 sounds with the same waveform. Let me kind of gain stage it again here. So this oscillator has an ever so slightly different tone to it. And the interesting thing is that you'll hear that in the lower range, the MatrixBrute has a slightly brighter sounding oscillator, a slightly more open sounding filter on it. But I think that's more to do with the filter than the oscillators themselves. It's more to do with how they're flowing through there. Now I'm going to start to overdrive the saw waves on these things, and I'm going to move the camera so that you can see the let's go ahead and take a look at this. And no, the Moog really, I don't believe it will go quite as low. It should. Let me see. Yes. There we go. I don't know why that was resetting on me. That was strange. Anywho, let's just make sure these are all down. Okay, so yeah, the MatrixBrute will give you just a slightly bit more low, but not really a big deal. Anyway, so yeah, let's go ahead and talk about yeah, and see that's so I'm reading the comments here, and that's actually one of the big misconceptions here, talking about sound fatter in the low end because of the transistor-based circuitry, as opposed to op amps. The not it, it it's not it's not really you'll see when I get to the waveform shaping, you'll see what I'm talking about, because I actually, well, I don't want to put my opinions onto the video, so I'll let everybody else kind of hear that. You make your own mind about it. But what I want to do is I'm going to move the camera over to the oscilloscope for a second so that you guys can see how these two overdrive in crazy different ways, and it's really fun. This is one of the reasons why I'll be keeping both synths. All right, so hopefully hopefully I can do this in a way that will make people happy. And if not, blame somebody else. Don't blame me. I'm too sensitive. I'm on YouTube and I'm just way too sensitive for that. People commenting negative saying that I talk too much. I'm gonna cry. Or not. Big fan of not giving a shit. Okay, so well, yeah, I'm gonna give you my opinion toward the end, but like I just don't want to cloud everybody with me saying things and then it being like a, you know, a placebo effect or whatever when you're checking it out. So anyway, let's see how well we can see this. Okay, so we're gonna kind of we'll use it down low here, and let me turn down the volume on my set here so that I don't get as much in through the feed. All right, so I'll tell you when I'm playing each. This is sub phatty first. Take a good look at it. And here's the MatrixBrute. Sub phatty. MatrixBrute. And now I'll go quick between them. We're getting a little bit more gain on the MatrixBrute, so I'll turn it down just a bit. Now that difference right there is pretty minute. I mean, you're really if you're able to hear the difference on that in a blind listening test, you're either a really good guesser or you're a magician. And I like magic, so that's cool. So let's check out how these things shape, because this is actually a really cool part of the sub phatty. So I'm going to start on the sub phatty, and the oscillator on the sub phatty right now is at 7. Okay, so that's before we get any kind of crazy drive or anything. Now let's go ahead. This is where like the real character of these synths start to come out, and this is where you can really kind of talk to each other and say, oh yeah, X sounds better than Y, and that kind of thing. And you know, it's all opinion based, but it's fun opinion, right? So what I'm gonna do here is, again, filter is full open. There's no envelope, no keyboard amount, no multi-drive, no resonance, and we're at 7 on the oscillator of the sub phatty. I'm just going to slowly turn the mixer on the sub phatty up. The oscillator is going to go all the way up to 12. And watch the waveform. And let's change the timing on this just a bit. Actually, we'll play a higher note so you can see it a little bit better. If you look at those negative peaks, you can see how they kind of round out a bit and stretch just a hair. That's really where you get that meatiness. Okay? So let's go back right about here. And now let's do the same thing on the MatrixBrute. Okay? Now the MatrixBrute I have up pretty high right now. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start a little bit lower now. Bring this up a bit. Bring this here. Okay, so I'm gonna first start by turning the oscillator all the way up. So you get just a tiny bit of that curve. And if you notice, like right at the tip, there's just like this tiny little there's this tiny little peak in there, okay? And that's where you get some of that kind of fizz, right? Which is easily manipulated with the filter, and which is really cool because the resonance will grab hold of that and have fun with it. So again, now I'm going to turn, that was the waveform that I turned all the way up. Now I'm going to turn the VCO itself all the way up, and then I'm going to turn the drive up, and then I'm going to turn the brute factor up. So again, there's a lot more stages on the MatrixBrute that you can overdrive at. So here comes the drive. Now you see how rounded that gets? That's freaking awesome. All right. Now that, when you start, messing with your filter cutoff and whatnot, is really fun, especially when you add a little bit of resonance back in. So that right there is that's with the drive going full. Now I'm going to turn that down, and I'll bring the brute factor up a bit. Now the brute factor is closer to the multi-drive of the sub phatty, okay? And I'll show you the multi-drive on the sub phatty as well. And it goes into full self-oscillation there. Notice how it clips out? Let me actually, and then I'm going to show you another way. If you turn the ladder filter output down, like this, and then bring the brute factor up, you get these nice rounded back into self-oscillation there. So you can have a lot of fun with that. And then when you combine them, you can do stuff like this. So you can get lots of different waveforms out of that. Now, on the sub phatty, I'm going to move over to the multi-drive on that. Let's go back to here. And I'm going to turn the oscillator up. Back the volume down just a bit. And then multi-drive. And this is where they really differ. And now let's bring the oscillator back to about 7 where it's not overdriving, and we'll turn the multi-drive up. So the sub phatty will overdrive, but it'll do so in a much, much more subtle way. Let me check the chat here, the live chat. So brute factor beating that you're referring to in the live chat, that's self-oscillation. That, because basically it's a feedback loop. So you're causing it to self-oscillate itself. And In the sub phatty, they kind of made it idiot proof. They took the parameters and they slimmed them down so that you can't do that. Technically you can, and matter of fact, I'll show you that. This is a stupid trick, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Okay, so are you guys saying you want the synthesizers louder? Because I can do that for you, no problem. Give me just a second here. Okay, this should be a little bit louder. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, so let me see if I can set this video up a little bit. I want you to be able to see what I'm going to do. This is a really kind of dumb trick. I don't actually use this trick. Let me turn the lights back up a bit. And again, you can go subtle with the MatrixBrute. It's just a matter of knowing your synthesizer and knowing how to tweak it. You know what I mean? Like, if you want it to be subtle, just don't go so extreme with where you're turning your knobs. You know, think a little bit before you patch. That's not really too much to ask, if you ask me. And I kind of prefer the flexibility of it, but that's also why I like the sub phatty so much, is because to me, the sub phatty is literally a perfect synth. At what it wants to be, it's perfect. It doesn't do nearly as much as other synthesizers, but like, it doesn't have a high pass filter. It doesn't have a band pass filter. I love band pass filtering. But for a bass synthesizer, dude, it sounds so freaking good. It's so funky. Alright, so let me just grab a couple of items real quick here. I think I have what I need to show you this. I need a little phono adapter here because I'm not sure where all my other cables are. I don't want to unplug everything. Give me 1 second here. I got one around here somewhere. Maybe I do have a cable down here somewhere. Give me 1 second. Let me grab this. Ugh. Here we go. I knew I had one somewhere around here. Alright, so this is gonna kind of allow you to take the sub phatty into less subtle area, okay? So, if you want to do ridiculousness, you can do this. So what I've just done is headphone out to audio in. This is the old mini Moog trick, you know? This is nothing new, but the sub phatty, you're supposed to not have to do this because you have multi-drive, whatever. But if you want to go into those, you know, more extreme territories, you can certainly just kind of get overdriving and feeding back like so. And it works way better when you, of course, bring your filter down and you can hear it self-oscillating, and that's with no resonance is up. So you can do kind of similar tricks with the sub phatty. And if you take the headphone out and turn it way down, so you get just a little bit of that. Let me show you what the waveform's doing here too, because it might be harder to hear over, you know, a live stream like this, but if you see the waveform, it kind of helps. So here we go. So this is with nothing on there, filter open, and I'll start to turn up the headphone a bit. And then, of course, if you back the filter off, then I'll bring the headphone down. I like to keep it down around like 2. If you take it all the way out, I just like to overdrive it just a bit like that. That's me tweaking the headphone. So anyway, that's just like a little... That's something that you can do. It's just another tone that you can get out of these things. So, where are we at now? Okay, so another aspect about these things that's really crazy is, so not only do they overdrive in that way, but the Sub phatty has this great, it's got this great variable waveform on it. Now, the MatrixBrute also has variable waveforms, but the way you control the variable waveforms is totally different from the way you control the waveforms on the Sub phatty. So let's check out the Sub phatty. I'm gonna sweep the waveform knob a bit. So here's the saw. I'm gonna turn to the left, which is triangle. So you get that kind of slightly arced triangle here. And again, I'm not overdriving it at all. If I want to overdrive it a bit, let's turn it from 7 all the way up. And hopefully the sound of the synth is good for you guys. Okay. And if I want to turn the multi-drive up, alright. And again, that's going triangle. Let's go back to the saw. Oh, I'm on the wrong oscillator here. And getting it just at the right spot is slightly tricky, but you know it works and it's really accurate. And then let's move into the square wave of it. So we'll go here all the way through. And when you start doing that, you get into Nick Bat territory and just pulse width modulate the hell out of it. Okay, now I'm going to show you how you get variable waveforms out of the MatrixBrute. The MatrixBrute, there's a lot of really cool tricks that you can do with this, and I'm going to start out by just doing it one by one. All right, so of course you've got Ultrasaw, which we all know from the Mini Brute and Micro Brute and all that good stuff, right? But really the way you get into those variable waveforms like we were talking about is you start messing with the other waveforms, the square and the triangle, while your saw wave is up. So if I wanted to go triangle a bit, you can kind of go this way and then start to turn down the saw wave, and then you get basically the same type of triangle that you're getting out of the sub. Now let's check it out. So that's the MatrixBrute. Here's the sub. Now we want to gain stage that a little bit. Let's match that up. Are you seeing how similar they are? I mean, that's really, really close. You get a slight extra overdrive bump on the Sub phatty. This is the MatrixBrute right here. And on the Sub phatty, watch this curve right up on here, okay? See how that's just like a slightly softer edge there? Now, and of course, as soon as you introduce a filter, you know, that stuff equals out pretty darn crazy. The MatrixBrute can do a bit more waveforms. The MatrixBrute can do some really cool stuff. You can get shark wave waveforms on this thing really easily. So check this out. So now we're at full triangle. Let's bring this back. Bring up the saw wave. Let's get a little bit of pulse width. So you can get this kind of intermediary here, which is not too different from when you do when you sweep the waveform on the Moog. But the Moog will do this kind of dip. So let's go right about here. And let's try to match that out a little bit. bring that up a bit. Match the pulse width a little bit here and play with that. So the MatrixBrute can go all the way to 0 for your pulse width. But the Sub phatty can go a little bit wider in the pulse width. Now, there are other things that you can do with the pulse width on the MatrixBrute though. So if I go to my matrix right here, I'm just gonna I'm gonna patch a macro knob into the pulse width, and I'm gonna set that full negative here. You can get these kind of like spiky waveforms out of it. Okay, so let me set that back to 0. Take that modulation off. And let me show you some other waveforms that you can get out of this thing. You can kind of tweak these. So you can get different pitches of your negative slope here. And this is kind of cool because this is very similar to the old mini Moog. You had this triangle with a notch in it at the top. You can kind of get similar to that. Which is a really awesome waveform. Like that right there, when you start adding resonance and sweeping the filter, I'll add some resonance and then I'll sweep that filter down. I mean, that's delicious, especially in 12 dB mode. Let me put that in 12 dB. If you don't like that, there's something wrong with you. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. So, and again, I'm just messing with the triangle and the square wave on that. And that's not, also not messing with the drive at all yet. When you start adding the drive in, you can kind of round out those tips a bit. Or if you add in a little bit of the brute factor, you can thicken it up like so, and then use the drive to kind of round it. So you can make it really thick and not fizzy sounding at all. And that's before even using the filter. So, you know, that kind of stuff, it makes me laugh when people say, oh, it's fizzy. It's like, well, depends on how you work with it. You know what I mean? It depends on how you use your tools. Now, still not done with the waveforms on this thing. The MatrixBrute, again, so I've shown the waveforms that you can do on the Sub phatty, but the MatrixBrute just keeps on giving. So let me show you something else that you can do with it. Now, I'm going to take this down. So this is just your square wave again. And if you back it all the way off so that it's not overdriving at all, let me bring this up. You get a little bit more even of a square wave there. And then when you start to drive that and cut the filter, the way the resonance will grab hold of this is really cool. That's still 12 dB right there. If I go to 24, there we go. And you have the sub oscillator, which I'm going to play an octave up. Now the sub oscillator, you can have a sine wave, but you can also overdrive the sine wave. And here's what happens when you overdrive the sine wave. It turns into this, like, it's not really a square, but it's close, and it's just freaking cool. And then when you back off the sine, bring it down, you get this really meaty square wave. That's anything but buzzy. Just real thick and warm sounding, which is awesome. In addition to that, when you start having fun with the modulations and whatnot, so this is VCO modulating VCO2, and I'm gonna bring. Actually, let me turn off. I'm gonna turn off VCO1, and we have just VCO2 on, and I bring that up. Just a tiny bit of it. And then bring that Brute up. That right there is awesome. I don't care what anybody says. So check the, yeah, I'll throw resonance on that one too. And look, you can turn that sucker right on back to a saw wave. Which is really awesome when you go into 12 dB. Okay. Questions. I'm looking for questions here. Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, I go head over heels for the two-pole filter. Both the Steiner and the ladder filter on there just sounds amazing. Something that I think gets overlooked a little bit is when you use the two filters in combination, the wave shaping that you can get out of that, and especially when you're using in parallel, and you use the Steiner as like a bandpass filter and the ladder filter as the low pass filter, you get ridiculous results. So what I'll do is I'll send the oscillator through both. So hold on, first let me show you without it, and then I'll turn it on. So this is just ladder, and then Steiner Parker is going to come in also. Now we got both. And then I'm going to turn the Steiner Parker into a bandpass and 12 dB. Some resonance. That's the low pass I'm tweaking. And here's the bandpass. And what's awesome is that you can link those two. You can, have them doing opposite modulations. Really, a really cool thing that you can do is I'm going to set up a quick modulation on here, and I'm going to bring it back to the synth so you can see what I'm doing. And let me see if I can get a little bit more light, maybe. Still looks a little dark on here, right? It makes my synth look a little bit more like the factory one, like that. But anyway, so let me see if I can adjust the exposure just a bit. Okay. You can see it a little bit better here. And let me move the sub phatty out of my way just a bit. Okay, so some cool stuff on here is the modulation that I'm about to set up is using the two filters opposite of each other. So what I can do is I have Steiner, Parker, and ladder filter are these two rows here. And I'm going to send them to a macro knob here. And I'm going to make them opposites of each other. So Steiner will go up a bit, and ladder will go down a bit. So when I turn this knob, they're going to go like that. Okay? So you can get kind of like formant filter type sounds out of it. And to take it a step further, all right, what I'm going to do now is I can modulate that. Let's actually, I'm going to remove the, no, I'll keep them on. I'll keep them on just because I'm not going to touch the knob. I'll send the knob back to 0. That's another thing that I was talking about in the tips and tricks video is panel and any one of the macro knobs, and it will reset that knob to 0. So you don't have to sit there and fiddle with it to try to get it to 0. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the envelope. Let's use envelope here is going to go negative. Envelope here is going to go positive. So it's the same kind of modulation that I just set up, but using the envelopes. And then I'll just set like a short little envelope on here. Again, if you don't like that, you're just ugly. And then bring the drive up. A little bit of brute, some drive. That thing is awesome. In your opinion, out of series and parallel mode, which gives more variety? Easily parallel mode. And I mean, that really only makes sense. I can put this same setup into series mode. And you can get some really cool timbre out of this. I had to catch myself. And it's, I mean, that mode is really great too. You can do some really cool stuff with it. You can do classic bass sound stuff. Let me take these modulations off real quick. And I'm going to do a classic MS-20 trick. Now, I'll fully admit, the MS-20 does this better. But this can do it in a much more varied way. And the MS-20 trick would be, so I would set the Steiner into a high-pass filter, set the cutoff all the way down, resonance up, okay? So now we're boosting the low end, and then, you know, you can set your low-pass filter basically wherever the hell you want. So without the Steiner, right, we're going to get, oh, well, still need it, that's right. So with this up, like so, I'll just bring up the resonance so you can hear it. I'm being a little bit ridiculous. You can hear how it boosts that low end. Let me show you the waveform on that real quick too. It's awesome. Again, this is really nerdy stuff that you guys just got to deal with. This is what I do. So when I bring that low end up, That's that resonance on the Steiner Parker coming up. And of course, you can add that enveloping into it too. And if you set the envelope on the Steiner while you're doing that, is the synth sound loud enough? It is going through a mixing board and into the camera, so it's kind of a limitation of just Google Hangouts in general. It's just shitty audio quality. So, what was the question? Not really what. So if you want me to turn up the synth, you just got to say turn up the synth, and I'll do that. Again, as I was saying, you might have missed it earlier. There's no way for me to monitor the audio of the feed on Google Hangouts. Okay. Is that any better? Is that better? There is a delay here as well, so you have to kind of bear with me. There's I turned it up a good bit, so let me see here. Let's try this. Oh shit. Hold on, let me see something. Son of a bitch. I hope you guys were hearing this properly, because I just changed the setting on here. Let's see, is that better? Well, shit, I wish I knew that earlier. That's why I was asking, what, how the audio was, because I can't monitor it. Oh, that sucks. That sucks really bad. No, apparently it was probably just going through the mic earlier. That really sucks. So I'm probably going to end up having to redo this whole feed some other day. But it is what it is. So, I'm going to get back to talking about what we're talking about, though. I'm going to run through really quickly as a recap to talk about how all the synth sounds are on it. Give you some real basic stuff just so you can hear direct audio of it. So let me do that real quick. Let's set this thing back to here. I'm going to go back to the regular settings here. So bear with me for a second. Alright, so again, here is that saw wave. Let me get this thing. Try to gain stage these again a bit. Okay, so MatrixBrute, sub phatty. And you'll hear the difference that the MatrixBrute is definitely brighter. And then if you can, yeah, I wish I knew that earlier. I'm really sorry about that. I thought we had the mixer running through there, but I just can't monitor it. I can't hear it, so I have to go off of what you guys say. So let's take a look at something else. This is kind of interesting. So here is the sub phatty, filter wide open, right? And that is your saw wave, right? Here's the MatrixBrute saw wave wide open. Now watch what happens when I give it just a little bit of filter cutoff. Just this much right here. Okay? I'm going to go low so you can see the waveform a little bit better. Sub phatty still wide open, watch. Now let's go back to the MatrixBrute just a little bit open. So really what you're seeing, these two are identical right now, really. You had that slight notch in the sub phatty. Audibly, they're pretty much identical, okay? And but what you're really seeing there is that the sub phatty with the filter all the way open isn't really fully all the way open. Like, you still get a slight bit of attenuation on there, whereas the MatrixBrute, you really get a clean signal going straight through. But again, it gets back to knowing your synthesizer. So if you want that same exact sound, you just back your cutoff off a hair on your MatrixBrute, and it's the exact same waveform. And if I go to a square wave here, let me actually bring it up here. Right about there. And then we'll do it over here. Pretty darn close. And, you know, that's sub phatty. MatrixBrute. Sub phatty. So, I mean, really, you can make these things sound completely identical. And when you start doing things like messing with the sequencer, I'm going to play the sequencer and tweak the filter so you can hear how the envelopes and everything moving around kind of affects the overall tone of these things. And I'm going to have the same sequence playing on the sub phatty in a second here. Let me back this thing off. So you can see it a little bit better. Now, let's give it just a little bit of envelope. We'll take this down. Slow this down a bit. plug this guy in over here, hopefully for moving around. And give it some of that envelope. And let me see where my settings were. Give it. Get out of the way of this thing too. You don't need to see my face. Sequencer is coming from the MatrixBrute. So again, that was one of the common misconceptions, that the MatrixBrute sequencer couldn't be used with other gear. Yes, it can. It can be used for through MIDI, through CV, pitch, gate, sync, all of that. Okay, so let's turn this down. We'll turn this back on. And real quick, just because I didn't have direct audio before, how about I show, I'm going to show some of those formant tricks again, so you can kind of hear it a little bit better. Let's bring this thing back about there. So, actually, now I'm going to bring in more oscillators too, so that you guys can kind of get a better idea of how this thing actually sounds. I'm adjusting the gate time over here. You can adjust your swing too. And of course, you can modulate all this stuff too. From other parameters. You could, for instance, I can map this over here like this, and then send an LFO to it. Let's say I want to send LFO to this. So now I'm modulating this macro knob from the LFO. So you can also modulate the points inside of your matrix. Your modulation amounts you can modulate as well. So like, let's say I wanted to modulate the amount of the low pass filter that I have going on here. I just press this and this, and then, oh, there we go. And then I can just go ahead and modulate that as well. So it's all kind of, it all works together. I don't have a Pro 2. I've got the Prophet 12, not the 2. Maybe one day, hopefully end of the summer, I hope to get a Pro 2 as well. That's like, to me, that's like the best synth that they've done. Really cool when you start adding in like delay. That's LFO delay. And then of course I haven't even touched the analog. That's the other thing, is that this thing is kind of like, it's like getting a Voyager XL that can do way more than a Voyager XL for half the money of a Voyager XL, plus a bunch of Moog pedals as well in the analog effects section. Of course, you can modulate all this stuff too. Like, let's say I want to modulate delay time, and wet dry amount, and we'll do aftertouch is going to be the delay time, and then the wet dry amount will be off of LFO1. So when I press down harder. So you can do some really, really crazy stuff with it like that. Yeah, people that complain about the price are just, I mean, I have to laugh. I'm like, to me it's silly. The one thing that I'll say personally that took me a minute to kind of wrap my head around and get used to was, you know, I kept looking at the knobs and saying, oh, I don't know how I feel about those knobs. You know, they're the same knobs that are on the Mini Brute and Micro Brute, and I was like, they just don't kind of really, they don't turn me on like that, you know? I really like how the Moog knobs look and all. I modified my MS-20 to have Moog knobs on it, you see? Because I really like that style of knob. But I have to say, after using it for a while, you really start to appreciate them. The soft touch of them. They're kind of like mutable instrument knobs in a way. They have this nice soft touch to them. They're really easy to read where you're at. They take a panel that would feel like if you had the Moog spacing and knobs on there, it would just feel way too huge. I popped a couple of them off and put other knobs on there just to see how it felt, and I did not like it. I like them a whole lot more than like the Davies knobs that are on, you know, some modular gear. I'll kind of show you my modular over here so you can get an idea. Like, I've got quite a few different knobs in my modular rack here, so it's, you know, I'm not You know, it's not like I don't know a thing or two about different knob feels, but I have to admit that after having it for a while, you start to appreciate the knob size and how they feel. Um, but yeah, man, it's a really kick-ass synth. Really kicking myself that we didn't have direct audio at the very beginning, so I'm really sorry about that. And I'll probably end up doing a whole nother feed, doing some comparisons later again, covering the stuff that I did in the very beginning, and probably some other stuff like I plan on doing a DeepMind 12 MatrixBrute comparison because they're such polar opposite synths. I think it's really funny to kind of compare stuff like that. They really just can't be any more different as far as how they're designed and how they sound and what their use case is, all that kind of stuff. They're both great synths, but they're totally different. So I think that's a cool thing. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm on Facebook also, so you can check me out there. Check out shop.fluxwithit.com if you like to support sound packs, all that kind of good stuff. And Beat People podcast, the Producers Hangout, Synth Summit show, all that good stuff. I really like the build quality of my DeepMind 12. I've heard different stories from different people, but I will say this about build quality. When you're shipping as many synthesizers as Behringer is shipping with the DeepMind 12, you have to really take that with a grain of salt, because you're talking about literally like over 100,000 synthesizers sold, and the massive amount of Q&A that has to go through for that is pretty mind-boggling. And their warranty is crazy, so I mean, I don't really give them any slack about that, because I'm just impressed that they can ship that many units. So something, as a contrast, the DeepMind 12 is built in pretty small quantities. That's why you'll see that it might be a little bit difficult getting one or finding them in shops. I've seen that just recently they're starting to show up in guitar centers. So I know there's a guy out in Nashville who's got them, who's got a couple of them out there. There's a guy out in LA, I think, has like maybe one or two in stock. But they're, a lot of places still have them on pre-order and or back order. So regardless, it's a really awesome synthesizer. Love it. It's my favorite synth in my studio, to be perfectly blunt. So if you guys have anything, hit me up. All right? I'm going to get back to drinking this tea that I've now let go cold. Yeah. Pachow. And, yeah. Oh, you know what? Real quick, I'm gonna I'll hit just a couple of the presets that I've been messing with. So I did sound design for it, but I've been working on new presets as well, and just kind of for fun. Oh, check this one out. If you guys don't like this preset, you're crazy. Check this out. Now this is one patch. I'm gonna bring this in a little bit closer so you can check this out. So, down low, I have the oscillators pitched up. Up high, I have the oscillators pitched down. So I can do this. Cool about that is the modulations. They're fairly basic, but like I said, I pitched the oscillators down. I did just some really basic modulations on this thing. If I start tweaking the macros on here, it can get really fun, and you can use the keyhole as well. So the keyhole will just keep this thing running, and then this. So these macros over here are assigned to like wave folding and what else? Pulse width modulation, saw wave ultra. I don't know what's going to happen with the next batch of presets that I'm doing. I already have like another probably 55 or 60 of them done. So I don't know if I'm going to release them or if I'm going to work something out with Arturia to do it or what. But, you know, ideally I'm going to get them out to people regardless just because they're fun. Let me see what I have. This one is kind of like random, so. Some strange atmospheres, and let's see where we're at here. Yeah, so just fun stuff. So anyway, check it out. I'll jump out of here, okay? And it says, yeah, so I'll have a bunch more tutorials and stuff coming too. I have a really cool video coming out soon on this guy right here, the Soulsby Synths Ossitron. I'm just waiting on a special product to come and help me do that video. That should make my videos really cool. There'll be more news about that later as well. And I'm going to have another episode of the Synth Summit show very soon with the guys from Audulus. So that should be pretty kick-ass. And also I'm going to be having Andrew Oz from Expert Sleepers on soon as well. So stand by to check it out.